Okay, I'm passing some things around for you to have, and I hope I don't bore you to death because it is lunch, and we are talking about financial information, and that's usually pretty boring. So let's get started. How's everybody today? We have one banker in the group, just one? Well, I know. I don't count them. I don't count them. So, did y'all have enough to pass? You need some more? I have some more. Here. Take one and pass it. So can y'all all hear me? Okay? All right, so here's my question. Do you manage your money, or does your money manage you? Money manages you. Well, we have an honest one in the group, all right? So if you want to be the manager of your money instead of the other way around, there's some things to talk about. And first of all, let's talk about your workplace, because that's the first place for you to take control of things. 401ks, making sure you're contributing to your 401k. If your employer has a match, make sure you're contributing at least enough for the employer match to kick in, right? That way you're getting free money from your employer. Maximize your employee benefits. Every year they have job fairs, right? And you get to go for the benefits. How many of you just click on the same thing year after year? I used to do that. Before there was a lot of rise in pricing, I would just keep the same thing every year. I would never pay attention. That's a way you can control it, is to watch exactly what you're signing up for, how much is it costing you. Insurance, disability, life, making sure that you have that planned for your family. If you're the primary breadwinner, you want to make sure you have disability. If something were to happen to you, people say, well, I have life insurance. Well, I'm sorry, but that only works if you pass on. If you just can't work for some reason, then your family is in dire straits because you do not have the disability. So these are things from your employer that you can think about how you can be in control. Let's talk about personal. In my experience, I found a lot of women who are very much afraid of the financial world because they don't really understand it. And so they lack the confidence to make some of the decisions they need to make. I'm here today to talk to you just a brief bit about how you can become educated about these things and not be afraid, because once you learn it or have a general understanding, then you're not going to be afraid to make those decisions. You'll know where to go to get the financial information that you need. How many of you have a budget? How many of you stick to your budget? Good job. Good job. So you track what you spend. Everything? Really? That is awesome, because that is very hard to do. I will tell you, it's like when you decide you're going to go on a diet and you're going to write down everything you eat that day, and the first day you do great. What happens on day 2? You skip a couple. By day 3, you can't remember what you had on day 2, and you missed all of day 3. So if you're going to manage your finances, then you've got to know where you are at any given point in time. Burying your head in the sand is not an option, because all you're going to see is the sand. So you've got to make sure you do that. Don't hand over finances to somebody else. You're earning the money. You need to control the money. Now, you know, I'm not here to start a divorce or a separation or any of that, but you need to think about that. I mean, if you're coming in and turning it over, most of the time the women manage the budget anyway. But if you aren't, you need to know where it's going. There needs to be ongoing conversations about how are you spending it. Because as a couple, no matter what you are, whether you live together or you're married or whatever your situation, if you're sharing expenses with someone, then you both need to understand that. Like any relationship in life that's important to you, your financial relationship should be important. And that means you've got to look at it, you've got to talk about it, you've got to track it, just like you do any other relationship you have with a good friend, with your mom or your dad or your spouse. A lot of spending is emotional. Did y'all know that? And sometimes we do it because we're lonely or we're bored. So when you look at that, consumer spending is driven 5% by facts. It's driven 95% by emotion. Now, Jane Thatcher was in that group, and she didn't really want to hear that because she likes the idea of you coming in with your emotion to buy that new car. But when you think about that, as you're making your financial decisions, am I making this decision based on fact, or am I making it based on my emotion at that particular point in time? Who's heard of YOLO? New acronym for you, YOLO. What is it? That's right. How much of that drives your financial decisions? YOLO, you only live once. Think about that. Sometimes it does because you feel like instant gratification. You know, I'm only going to be on this world one time. I might as well enjoy it while I'm here. Mapping out your financial future, whether it has to do with your employee benefits, your personal goals in life, those sort of things. So let's talk about major purchases a minute. And I'm not going to get into the mortgage world, but when you think about it, if you're looking for a new home, it should never cost you more than 3 times your annual income, the price of that house. Household income, 3 times. I think that's a little steep. It's really not very conservative because that would scare me to death. If you're a 2-income household and all of a sudden one income goes away and you're in a house 3 times that. The other thing to think about is when you're looking at something, your insurance, your property taxes, your maintenance, and your upkeep usually run you between 2 or 3% of the cost of your house every year. So you've got to figure that in. When you're trying to determine, can I afford a payment of X on this house, there's all these other things that go in it. When you're looking at buying a car, you need to look at not just the price of the car, not just what's the payment going to be, but you got to include insurance, got to include gas. If it's a used car, you got to consider maintenance. And a rule of thumb is it should be 10% or less of your gross income. So again, all these are just rules of thumb. Situations are different. Are you planning for retirement? I'm retired once, you know. So let me give you a good rule of thumb for retirement. Take your annual income today and multiply it by 25. And that's how much you need to have in your retirement account when you get ready to retire. So if you made $50,000 a year, 25. So if you made $50,000 a year today, multiply that times 25, that's $1,250,000 you would need to retire and keep the same standard of living you have today. Now, you also got to realize we've had some pretty low interest rates lately, so you definitely got to have enough. I mean, none of us want to have to go back to work. That's scary. So you should invest, this is important, 15% of your household income in your retirement. If you can do more than that, that's great, but not many people can do more than that, and that's probably going to take some sacrifices. So for you guys that budget, was it hard to start doing that? I get that. I mean, usually that's what drives us to that, right? So when you're budgeting, 20% of that is the know-how to do it. 80% of it is a behavior change for the rest of us that don't. And it's a discipline factor of how do we do that and how do we make it work. I've got another one for you. Anybody know what lifestyle creep is? Lifestyle creep. We've all heard keeping up with the Joneses. That's a lifestyle creep. So you get a new promotion at work, right? And all of a sudden you got to dress a little better, right? And then you got to have the shoes to go with the dressing a little better. And then you say, well, you know, I can't be driving this raggedy old car because now I've got this new job. So before you know it, your wants have become needs. And they're really not needs. They're really just wants. But I thought it was interesting that lifestyle creep is kind of an interesting new buzzword they're using in the financial world today. Here's a big one. Don't bet on that next bonus. Don't bet on that. Budget and live within the means of your income, not counting any bonuses. You know the way I always looked at bonuses? Found money. That was found money if I got a bonus. But so many people budget that the minute that bonus doesn't work, or you work somewhere that maybe they're not having a good year and they're not able to give you the bonuses that they've been able to give you before, all of a sudden you have budgeted your whole life around that, and then you know, it's very unfortunate. There's a lot of things you can cut in your budget. For those of y'all chime in. Cable, huge deal. Lots and lots of money. You can spend $2,500 a year on a cable bill. If you have all the sports and the premium channels, and even if you just get the bare, I just did that. It was $100 a month for internet and 10 channels. 10. That was it. It was $100 a month. I'm like, who wants to watch these 10 channels? Anything I want to watch wasn't in that, right? I mean, it was crazy. So, working out. Working out's important for a lot of us. Make sure that you're getting the best value for your dollar with working out when you're putting a budget together. Don't go spend so much on a year-long membership that you got to keep paying when you know that you're going to go 3 times and you're not going back. Because I've done that. I've joined the Y, I can't tell you how many times. And then I'm motivated, I'm going to go. And guess what? I go twice. And then, you know, you have to finish out that contract. And it's like that with a lot of places. So I'm saying we've got to work out. As women, we have got to keep ourselves physically and mentally fit to deal with the stress and the pressures that we have every single day. Because we don't have wives to do stuff for us, right? If we could all have a wife, we would be in good shape. But we don't have that. I will tell you that another thing to think about, how many of you go by Starbucks? $5 every time you go. Think about that, $5. I talked to a group of medical students and I said, how many of you go by Starbucks? And every single one of them raised their hand. And I went, $5 times 5 days, $25 a week, times 52 weeks in the year. Look how much money you're spending. So drink your coffee at home or at work, where they provide it for you, if they do provide it for you. Here's a great one. Y'all ready for this? I know you want to hear it. You ready? Work more, you spend less. Because if you work a lot, you don't have time to shop. I mean, if you're at work, you should not be on that work computer, right? Doing all that little stuff. You should not be doing that. So think about that and say, well, I'm putting in all these hours and that's great, but guess what? I can't shop because I'm here. And it does work. That does work. Wait, did I tell y'all this? If you're going to buy something, wait 48 hours before you press click. If you're on the internet and you feel like, I need that, wait 48 hours and come back. And ask yourself, do I need it? Tell them about your experience with that.
I just was too tired to finish and couldn't make up my mind, and I left 3 things in the cart, and in a day or 2 they came back and offered me 10% off if I'd go ahead and buy it.
What she had left in her cart? Now, did you decide then it was not a need, it was a want? Okay. But think about that. Okay, credit score. How many of you know your credit score? Let's talk about that. Very good. That is great. Credit scores are made up of 5 things. Do y'all know that? They are, do you pay your bills on time? Do you have outstanding debt? What is the length of your credit history? So how long is the oldest debt you have been out there? Have you applied for new credit recently? And how many and what types of credit do you have? And those are used today to get your insurance rates. They're used to, if you're looking for a job, if you're going to go rent an apartment. Obviously, they're used if you need credit. So I got to go.